Oh, the Epstein files were released today and landed with a big thump. Obviously, what happened and what people were expecting were two very different things. And looking at what people are saying right now, I don't think people are actually picking up on what really happened. Now, I don't know precisely what happened, but I have some narrative sketches that would better explain what we just saw over the last week rather than what other people are saying. So, what has been released is essentially nothing. It's a bunch of records, the flight logs, which have already been released, and essentially Epstein's phone book, which is just a list of people he's called, which could it mean nothing in particular. And I think people are failing to understand the mechanics of this. People are saying, "Oh, if the Attorney General Pam Bondi had nothing, why did this whole week long theater of the absurd?" So it's a very high stakes game to say you have a big reveal and spend a week doing it and then produce nothing. Why would smart, powerful people do that? If that were all there was going on, it would have been better for them to just say nothing at all and say, hey, well, we'll get around to the Epstein file somewhere further down the line. So something more was going on than what we were seeing. Now, one key thing to keep in mind on this is the methodology of this play we saw was deliberately dragged out. They started playing the game of, oh, well, we're going to release it to this committee in Congress, and we're going to do this here. Now we're going to specially release it to these influencers on X, etc., etc. If the purpose of this whole event was to get information to the public, delaying the rollout over a week and passing it through all these different people doesn't make any sense. Therefore, you can conclude that the goal of this was not to get information to the public, but some other reason. Positive purpose of the system is what it does. Okay, so let's imagine that they actually had nothing. The only thing they had was what they just released here, flight logs and phone records. Well, one way that if this happened, and I actually think this is the least likely thing, a possibility, but it could have been some form of bird dogging. They knew something was out there, some kind of information. Maybe they had a list of things from somebody saying, "Yep, here's all the stuff out there. There's recordings, etc., etc." And they were trying to use this event to flush things out. Now, this is probably one of the weaker sketches because I can't completely envision what it is going on. Now, what supports this is the New York office of the FBI whistleblower suddenly showing up. So, if this was a bird dogging event, this could be indicative of this is what they were trying to get flushed out, and they basically got the person to say, hey, it exists, it's here, I got it, or at least we got it somewhere here in a safe. So, what is against this idea is I can't figure out what showing how showing this in the public would draw the whistleblower out. It's always possible there was something else going on behind the scenes that created pressure that we're unaware of. However, I would say just the way this happened, it leans towards coincidental, but I wouldn't completely rule out the idea that this was a bird dogging event. So, having nothing and pretending they have something is foolish because it's eventually going to look just like what happened. So, they had to be assuming that what happened today was one of the possible outcomes. So, the idea that they had something, we're going to release it, and now are pretending they don't have anything makes more sense. What are some reasons why they might do this? Well, one possibility is They may have realized that the FBI, and I think we can all agree on this, the FBI is a huge problem. There's a lot of entrenched people, a lot of dangerous information being hidden, a lot of uh, intelligence style weapons that can be used against people. So maybe this was a reason for war against part of the FBI, uh, New York Regional Office being a good example. Maybe they're trying to create a I'm going to pronounce this badly. I'm sorry. Sorry, I've only read it, not said it out loud. Latin casus belli, reason for war. Essentially, create this big reveal moment, get everybody excited, and then right at the last second, they say, "Oh, wait a minute, we can't do this because of this bad FBI faction in New York." So maybe the whistleblower is actually fake. He creates the justification for basically having a FBI civil war where the good faction can go in and root out the other one. Considering how closely attached the FBI is to the deep state, they couldn't just go out there with no reason at all. The idea that part of the FBI is protecting pedophiles and the FBI and the Epstein files and all these other things creates this potential justification. So, what's support for this? Well, the appearance of the whistleblower when he did show up seems really convenient. So this works out. The dragging out of this thing over an entire week got everybody riled up. It seems like the purpose of it was to get people riled up. Uh, right now, if you look on X, people are calling for the District of New York FBI office to be raided in force. They're talking about basically sending in SWAT teams to root these people out in their homes. So, what goes against this idea? I can't actually think of anything. So, I think has a decent possibility of being what's happening. Creating a reason to basically root out a chunk of the more troublesome part of the FBI. So, what's another possibility? Well, I call this sketch the deal. Um, so, imagine that there's something Trump needs to get done, and not all the establishment is with him. So he is in the middle of what they'd call a big ask. There's something he wants the establishment to allow to happen, and they're essentially refusing. So the big ask is followed by the big refusal. So then, basically, Trump and his team concocts a game of chicken. They say, okay, well, we got the Epstein files. You know what's in there because we've all seen parts of it and at least had it explained to us. So So essentially, the Trump team threatens we will release the Epstein files unless you cave into our big ask. And perhaps the other side said, you aren't going to do that because some of your people are on that list too. We know who's everybody's on there, so you're going to be causing collateral damage. Well, then we basically go through this week where they're slowly building up to this big reveal, and they make the other side realize, holy crap, he's actually going to go through with this. Thursday morning, they're going to dump this stuff, and a whole bunch of us are either going to have to flee for our lives or uh, get out our Japanese swords and do something honorable. So what we may have seen is at the last second, the players who were preventing the big ask from occurring basically blinked and said, "Okay, uh, yeah, we'll let whatever the big ask is happen." So then what happens is this sudden FBI whistleblower thing with FBI information being held is dropped out there as the reason for, oh well, this is why we can't do this right now. And we'll spend the next year, 2, 3, 4, 5, however long it takes to completely work this out before we actually give the information. So it creates a setup for an indefinite to permanent delay. What is this big ask? I have no idea what it might be. It might be dismembering the FBI. It might be dismembering the CIA. Maybe it's a uh, do the deal on the budget, actually come up with something realistic. Don't know. But, I mean, it's clearly possible for any number of big asks to be out there. Support for this idea? Well, stopping the real release of the Epstein information based on an FBI whistleblower actually makes no sense if you really have the information. Because in theory, they should have everything they need to have. So suddenly, oh, well, we had it all, but now we can't because the FBI whistleblower showed up. So it looks like a contrived reason not to give the information. So why go through this whole theater of this whole drawn out business over the last week unless you are actually doing something behind the scenes that makes sense, the scenes to make basically this is a show for somebody else. It was only in part for the general population. It was mostly for these members of the establishment to show, hey, we're getting closer. You want this to get dumped, or do you want to give us what we want? Closer, 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 until finally they say, okay, yeah, you're not bluffing, or at least we don't believe you're bluffing because we've watched you not bluff in the past. So, what's against it? What's against this idea from working? Well, we have no idea what the big ask could be. I mean, we can speculate, but we don't know. Now, that's something that could be determined. I mean, if we see the establishment cave on something really big in the next year that we'd never expect them to cave on, that could be telling us what the ask was. So, finally, if they had something and they really planned to release it and then were forced to back down and pretend they had nothing, this is a weird sketch because it's really hard to fathom what it could possibly be. So let me restate that, make sure it makes sense. So let's say Pam Bondi actually really had the whole big bundle of files on her desk. She was getting ready to release them. And at the last second, somebody in the establishment came down and did something where Trump and his entire team went, oh, yeah, we're not going to release anything. I don't think this is likely because I can't think of what causes this, but because it's possible, we have to discuss it. So that infers that the establishment had something worse to reveal, some kind of counter reveal where the rest of the Trump people go, oh crap, we don't want that to happen. What that is, can't imagine. Or they may have threatened Trump and his team with something that they consider very credible to the point where they say, okay, we'll just not do the Epstein files and we'll just embarrass ourselves on Thursday rather than deal with the threat of what you're doing. Um, the thing that supports this is this awkward lack of a reveal this morning because it seems like there was something there the whole time, like there was actually something going to be revealed, and then all of a sudden there isn't. Um, the things that are against it is one, I can't imagine what is the worst establishment reveal, or what is the threat they're actually going to levy. I'm pretty sure they threatened Trump with almost everything they can possibly threaten him with. So coming up with why they would back down at this point is a little hard to fathom, but it's not out of the question. I mean, who knows what could they could maybe they have uh, another virus online that makes COVID look like the sniffles, and so they're basically threatening to go forward with that or something. I don't know. I'm really spitballing here. I don't know the answer to that, but like I said, it's a possibility. All right. So in the comment section below, tell me what you're thinking here. Did I get close on any of these? Do you think they had something and then basically either had to back down at the end, had something, and a deal was struck where they decided not to release it in exchange for something else? Uh, were they bird dogging? Were they trying to flush somebody out to get something they wanted? Were they trying to create a reason for war to basically go after a chunk of the FBI and possibly other parts of the intelligence establishment? Be curious to hear what you got to say because obviously these, like I said, these are sketches. They're not like full ideas where everything makes sense in them because there's a lot of information we don't have yet. So your take on it would be very interesting to me. Please smash the like button. If the YouTube algorithms brought you here and you're not a regular subscriber, check out my other titles. I get into lots of different things. You'll find something interesting. Please subscribe. And if you know someone who might find this interesting, share it with them. All right. Thank you for spending time with me this evening. Hope to see you again in a future video.